Hey folks, welcome back to another month of Metabolic Stability. We're almost halfway through 2015, if you can believe that already. We are here at Henkin Field, and we're going to share with you today probably one of the most underutilized drills that you can do in regards to single leg training. A lot of people know it's a great drill, sometimes referred to as a Bulgarian Split Squat if you've been around a while, sometimes referred to as a rear foot elevated split squat. Apples to apples, orange to oranges, it's all the same. But that's what we're going to take a look at today. The reason this is such a great drill and should be used a lot more, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. You don't have to load up with a ton of gear, and that's what we're going to show you in all these sequences today. We got 6 full sequences for you. All these sequences, you don't need to pile on and look like you've mummified yourself with all this gear just to try to get a training effect. We're going to show you some very simple and effective ways to do that. The other thing that often happens if you take a look around at how movement works, if you've kind of been studying the movement that's just kind of becoming a very more popular, trendy kind of thing, and looking at the things like the fascial lines and things like that, is that sometimes the work being done, the important work, is not necessarily where you think it's coming from. In this instance, the important work many people think is done in that front leg or the loaded working leg, but oftentimes there's a big bailout or hip drop, if you will, that happens in the back end. So what we're going to show you in this month's Metabolic Stability is 6 really awesome sequences using equipment that you've already got, enough to get a training effect. And as you know, if you've ever done this with clients, body weight's often enough. So these are very, very nice, easy, gentle, progressive drills that you can start to take your clients into those loading patterns using the Bulgarian Split Squat, easier for me to say, and getting that training effect to move forward, as opposed to just doing a body weight drill and then switching to something else and loading them up heavy there. There's a very, very segmental way that you can do this that your clients will enjoy and that they'll find very progressive. Hey folks, so here we are with sequence number 1. We got Josh set up here. We've got a single kettlebell. I know you guys got a ton of these in the facility. We got Josh set up, and we're going to talk about that hip drop piece real quick. So you can see Josh has got toe curled under here. What happens oftentimes is, especially when people start to come out of that bottom position, they really create this buckled hip drop out of that bottom position. They're trying to create that force that's not happening out of that lead leg, obviously, but what we really want is to be active both sides, and this is what I'm talking about. There's a bunch of value in this from a stability and mobility standpoint if this butt cheek is on and he's coming in and out of this. So let's show a couple one more time, just body weight, show a good one, and then let's take a look at that one with the hip drop. Very simple stuff, very easy to recognize. You can recognize that from across the room. Make the simple cue. If you're coaching planks, you should be able to coach this, because all it is a butt squeeze, just like it should be on a plank. So what do we do from there? If we've mastered basic body weight to a full range of motion, which we're just going to make that leap of faith to Josh's already, because he's got this down pat, and you've mastered the goblet position, so your 2 basic positions, let's go ahead and move this incrementally. We're not making big leaps here. Incrementally to a dead stop position, or maybe if you want to look at it in fancier terms, a deficit position. So we're going to start with Josh with the bell in the bottom position. We get him down there and we bring him up and out of this. Really, really simple aspect, but a really, really great way to add that progressive load training effect. Like, it's not all about load all the time, folks, and still get a great effect out of this. What other things can we do in this dead stop position? We can make Josh come down and maybe hang out, kind of kill that stretch shortening cycle a little bit on him, make him hang out for a couple seconds, maybe in just a little hover position, and then come back up. You've seen us talk about hover positions several times in metabolic stability, so great way there. Or we can take this into a traditional kettlebell piece. And you can see there what changed. Bang, as soon as I do that real subtle movement of that kettlebell passing in low position across the body. So the kettlebell's moving in what? The frontal plane. Josh is still in a very sagittal plane movement, but it's a definite challenge. We start to really tie in that lateral system, especially in the top end of the body. So we're adding training effect to the top end of the body. The forward leg is getting the dominant resistance training work, and we're doing an awesome job. So hopefully you can see this couple real basic pieces we put together here as your next step once you've got clients mastered with the body weight side, getting great ranges of motion, and then you've loaded them up with that real basic goblet position. Now we can go ahead and take these kettlebells, we're very well suited for this, and get it to the next level.
All right, guys, so we just looked at a great series of kettlebell drills by Troy. We're going to use the Ultimate Sandbag to fill in some of those other components. The nice thing that using kettlebells and our Ultimate Sandbags is, as Troy mentioned, you can do so many different but purposeful drills and variations of the Bulgarian Split Squat to stress the body. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to where Troy started and down and low in the hip position. We're going to use our rotational lunge though. Now remember, the term rotation refers to what's happening with the Ultimate Sandbag. So as Troy goes up, we're only going to go to one side. So we're always going to go to the same side as his stance leg. This is a great opportunity, as Troy talked about, looking at, make sure he doesn't bail off his hip. He's going to go very vertical. So as he goes down that position, he's really trying to minimize any trunk lean. So I'm able to really easily see if he bails in that hip. Now the great part is as he's moving down, the weight's pulling in the frontal plane. So what we talked about earlier with that tactical lunge with the kettlebell, but this is more amplifies it because of the distance the weight's traveling. We have this great X pattern going. This is basically the beginnings of a nice chop and lift type of action as well. Nice job, Troy. So over time, you know, we like to actually load this drill, add a little pause at the bottom. You're not going to use the speed component as you would see in some of our other rotational lunge position variations, but this series almost has incredible value in building the ability to tolerate more loads in that force absorption phase in the more dynamic rotational lunge series. All right, guys, as Troy mentioned before, there's some obvious positions we can go in that we're not going to go over today, which is like our front hold position, fist position, and so forth. What we want to look at is a little bit more dynamic position, which is the shoulder position. Now, whenever you have a split stance, whichever shoulder you load does matter. So we're going to start Troy actually loaded with the rear shoulder or the rear leg shoulder because, again, it's going to fit our cross pattern concept. So again, this is a higher position than with the kettlebell, so it's a little bit more stressed upon his posture. So having the weight actually pushed down upon him, you want to make sure people stay in line with their hips. A lot of people are going to try to spread wide as they get in that position, or they're going to angle themselves away from their hip, okay? They're going to try to find stability or balance. So as Troy goes down, we're just looking again for that nice open hip. He's got to find his happy place, vertical torso, okay? Not overly complicated, but important to understand which shoulder you're loading first. Now, if you load the opposing shoulder, it's going to change the stress upon the body. Some of you might find it easier, some of you may find it more difficult. If you find it easier, then you may have a dysfunction in that cross-patterning system, or you may be leveraging yourself a little bit. Now, what we're going to do is take this to a drill Troy and I talk a lot about is using the thruster concept within the Bulgarian Split Squat, whether it be with kettlebells, or we're going to show you a great series with the Ultimate Sandbag. So he's going to start the weight on his shoulder. He's going to grab hold of the Ultimate Sandbag. And basically, he's going to use the concept of a thruster. He's going to go down, and as he comes up, he's going to arc press to the opposing side. So now we get to stress both sides, and now we have not just a vertical plane moving, but horizontal, and that's what will throw off your balance, as you saw what happened with Troy. It takes a lot of lateral stability as much as it does your up and down. A little bit of weight goes a long ways. Nice, Troy. Now we can be really evil. Troy owes me money here. If we have him hover and do one arc press. So we'll just do that one time, Troy. So again, as Troy mentioned, doesn't always have to be a low concept, especially with tools that we don't always have the ability to go up by 5 pounds with. So if he's more advanced, it goes here, hover, balance, and then drive up. Nice job, Troy. So again, you can take these concepts and really build some awesome progressions. The idea that Troy and I are trying to give you is if you have a station, the concept is a Bulgarian Split Squat, and you have your kettlebell and or Ultimate Sandbags, you can train a beginner or advanced person. You're just going to change the level of progression of that exercise. They're all doing the same movement pattern, but all getting a different type of level of training out of it.
Okay, we're back for the sequence here. Now, the blatant obvious thing here, like slap you in the face piece, is we've got 2 kettlebells now. But we're going to take this to another little piece. So Josh is going to step up here in the position. Obviously, if we double the load, we should be a little conscientious on not just jumping positionally. So I'm going to give Josh a little bit of a hand here, like you would with your client. Your low load is going to be on your trail side. Your high load is going to be on your top side. So what we're doing is we've kind of dialed down or kind of mitigated and managed the holding position by, in an aspect, paying conscientious attention to that double load piece. Very, very simple way to do it. A lot of people would make that big leap with double load and doubling the difficulty of the holding position by going double up top. And that's what we're going to do next. We're also going to talk about another difference real quick. So obviously here we have a great leg drill. The legs are finally probably getting some really good resistance training, but this core, more than anything, is fired on right here. It is absolutely a fantastic drill. You start to see mobility stuff maybe show up. Maybe you have great mobility in that real passive body weight piece, but when you double that load, it's really going to challenge all working aspects. The other thing that we didn't really get a touch on real quickly is when Josh is in that offset position, the X pattern loading that goes through him is kind of asymmetrical, if you will. And there's a lot of really great work and value that comes out of there by just having that load. If you don't have a lot of kettlebells in your facility, and you have to train with mismatches, nobody really talks about this. I talk about this a little bit in some of my stuff, is that if you use some mismatched loads, it actually provides a training effect as long as you take the effort to even that training effect out on both sides. So it's a really great way to do it. If you're going to do that, you would have your heavy, at least initially start off with that heavier kettlebell on your low side and your lighter on your high side, and then you could work to the inverse of that. So there's so many layers of progression. Hopefully you can start to understand and appreciate some of those as we lay them out for you. And again, this is not wacky stuff. We're not standing inverted on our head trying to do this stuff. This is really, really usable stuff that can be used with a large degree of clients.